Hello, everyone. This is Andy coming to you from a hot and sticky United Kingdom, getting ready for some Swedish midsummer celebrations in a couple of days.
Isn't that lovely? Well, hello, everybody. I am your other host, Scott, coming to you from Toronto, where it's still working its way into those hot, sticky summer days. We're getting there, though.
That's good. That's good. This is the T and Timbits podcast, global perspectives on business development to help you prosper. And we are continuing this month of June in the focus of sales methodologies. And last week we did Spin. The week before that we did Challenger. And this week we're going to be talking about Sandler. And before we get into that, Scott, you got a story for us?
I sure do. And I'm looking forward to learning about another sale. By the time we're done this month, I'm going to be selling so many different ways. I'm going to have to reset the whole bar and go, wait a minute. I should have regressed to where I was before this month because I've gotten myself all excited about these different ways of doing it. So, yeah, two things. One, I've been working on a bit of my own content production lately, presentations, mainly, but a little bit of written stuff as well. But I got from a client a brief, and it was very detailed, very robust. And I was like, wow, this is cool. Like, this client is ready to lean in and do this. And I started to sort of draft some notes and book a call to talk to them about it. And then it suddenly dawned on me that they had not written the brief. They had not even copied it from somebody else. They had just told AI what it was they were trying to do.
Really?
And AI had given them something that was like, yeah, this is great. This is what I want. And I was like, because I would be shocked if this particular client actually was ready to do the kind of work that this brief was asking to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so when you read this brief, you were like, wow, this is great. They want to go broad. They want to go deep. They want to be comprehensive. They want to really make this a priority. Look at the substance and structure they've put around articulating this ask. That alone, to me, signals readiness, investment, posture, resource availability, commitment. It's different from sending an email that says, hey, we're thinking about doing X. Can we chat about what would be involved, how we would go about this? Nope, I got this 2-page conference, right? So I was like, I better check myself before I overinvest in a response to this and prepping for what could be pretty cool. And so the reality is, okay, so I jump on the call. I'm like, I hold back a bit. And I basically said to them, I'm like, hey, great brief, by the way. I'm like, it took me a second, but I could tell you got a little help on the drafting of this message. And they kind of smiled and smirked, like, oh yeah, I mean, like, doesn't everybody run this through ChatGPT now? And I was like, yeah, of course. Like, of course you did. Of course I do. Of course everybody's doing this now. Like, I should have known, and I should have, like, and I said, and I told them the story. I was just upfront about it. I said, you know what's funny is I read this and I got really excited, and I thought, and I said, and then I thought I better check myself and have a conversation with you. And I said, so I'm gonna kind of assume that my initial reaction was the wrong one. And they were like, and they laughed, and they were like, yeah, you're right. You got too excited, but you're not wrong. Like, we do want to make this a bigger priority than we've ever made it before. And this is something, but not to the extent that I suppose the brief made it feel like. And then the other story is me getting ready to do my own content. And when you get this, when you've been thinking about something and you're excited about it yourself and you're working with AI and it gives you back something that's clear, well articulated, robust, and you're like, oh, I feel good about the way that that's being reflected back to me. It's even in my own words because it knows who I am and how I speak. It's easy to get swept up by it. And if you recognize something that sounds good and feels good and entices and excites you. And so I was reviewing my presentation with the colleague that I was presenting with, and he was like, great. He goes, I'm just going to give you some feedback on the structure and content because there's some AI tropes that are in there. And I just went, oh, like, of course there are, right? He's like, AI just likes to say, it's not this, it's that instead.
I know. I've seen
Right?
so many people posting things like that.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating. And I'm just sorry for interrupting your story. But it's quite funny because, you know, I used to all the time write things like that.
Yeah.
Because that was how I spoke to people. And it was absolutely fine. You know, when you're doing a presentation, it's not going in this direction, it's going in this direction. And it's not one of these type of things that you're familiar with. It's actually one of these. You know, and that's not unusual. But of course, AI is doing it all the time now. So you're like, well, I can't do that anymore.
I know. So I've checked myself a little bit, and I've just simplified the language a bit, and I've kind of I think it'll kind of find balance and whatnot. And I do find even the AI evolves in how it's speaking and responding and structuring some of the language as a result. And I'm better at prompting it to avoid some of those recognizable things. I don't get nearly as many M dashes anymore and stuff like that. But
that long one?
Yeah. AI loves M dashes.
Okay.
To separate thoughts. So my point is, one, watch for it and be careful you don't fall into the trap of just spitting out the AI content. I had somebody do it at work today, actually, too. Gave me back a presentation. I'm like, all you did is copy and paste this into, like, you didn't even pass it through the filter of your own brain.
Amazing. I think there's a lot of that now, though.
Oh, tons. It's gross. So reminder for everybody, if you needed another one, don't do that. And two, when you see it happen and you're the recipient of that, have a little grace. We're all kind of having these weaker moments, but they're not necessarily weaker. They're coming from a place of genuine excitement and optimization a lot of the times, but we can over-index for it, and we can do it a little bit sloppier. So I wanted to share those moments and what they meant for me.
It's a very good reflection, and I think as always when I hear your stories, there's something in that sparks some thoughts and ideas and some recognition in some of the experiences I have as well, and I'm sure it's the same for the listeners.
You're going to go rewrite some emails right now?
Yeah, I might run them through GPT. Yeah. But we're not going to be talking too much about that. However, some of the things that you said early on in your story there is very relevant to where we're going now in the sales methodologies, where we're going to be focusing about Sandler. Because, of course, a big part of that is making sure that you qualify the opportunity and that you challenge it, and that you make sure that there is actually a real pain that needs solving, and that they're committed to actually doing it. So, funnily enough, you were already describing Sandler at the early part of your story there, perhaps without realizing. But if we reflect back, before we go too much into Sandler, I think it is important to reflect back on the other methodologies that we've talked about, because Challenger is the one that we opened with. And the key with that is that we use that to sort of, we reframe their mindset, and we teach them something of value. And if you have that Challenger approach to everything, you're always educating, teaching, and giving them something fresh and something new to think about. But in the context of a sales conversation, you then need to, of course, help them to understand the consequences and the potential outcomes and benefits of that reframed mindset. And that's where spin comes in, and it helps people to go on that journey through asking the right questions. But then once you've kind of done that and you've got to that point, it's really important then to introduce Sandler. And at the high level, as I mentioned, it just kind of helps to get the customer, or helps to ask if there is a real pain there, and is there enough focus on making a change? Is there enough pain forcing that change? And the people who you're talking to, do they actually have the authority, the money, and the commitment to actually continue through that process to deliver? And that, combined with the willingness to walk away, which is a big part of Sandler as well, is really, really a whole package. And that's why I think we've correctly positioned them in that order as well when we've been talking about the methodologies, because that is the way to think about it, and it is the way to layer it. As we've said in the last episodes, I think doing one at a time is probably not a great idea. But I think it's very important to understand the differences between each one, because each situation requires more or less of each.
Well, I think, yes, it does. Like, the more I dig into this and spend time thinking about it this month, the more I realize that, like, there's so many scenarios where one is an optimal sales methodology for that moment, for that ask, for that need, for that client, and the other is better for something else, bigger, smaller, different, what have you. So having an awareness and kind of being a student of this on a regular basis, and coming back and reminding yourself about the different methodologies again and again is helpful for recognizing the moment when you're in it and go, you know what? I don't need to be so comprehensive and consultative here. I think that this client just has already kind of got a destination clearly in their mind. It's my job to just make sure that we're calibrated properly. But to that point, sometimes the client has that destination in mind, and they come forward articulating it in a way that has probably been conflated in their own mind and through their own process that they went through, and their own internal conversations. And so what I like about listening to you describe Sandler there, the point that I picked up on was identifying the pain there. I can't remember exactly how you said it, but and I think I might have said this when we were talking about one of the other sales methodologies. So often the pain that gets articulated as the catalyst for why we're having this conversation is not the real underlying pain. It's so much deeper. It's adjacent to that. It surfaces in one way, but it's more systemic, or it is one further step away that perhaps the buyer doesn't have immediate control over, so they express it in a way that's closer to them. And I find that when you can really sort of make sure that you're validating that, you'll get to a point where you can deliver the right kind of value for and have more long-term success in the engagement.
I'm going to focus on one of the points that you raised there, and that was about the pain not being the main issue usually, or the verbalized or identified pain. And I'm not a massive fan of saying pain, because sometimes as a salesperson you are actually helping someone to move towards or achieve a goal that they have, and so that can be a positive thing. It's it may not be a pain that's caused it; it may be an ambition. That's
very good point. Very good.
But again, there will be related elements to that, and what we when we were building the training around the Challenger and implementing that in some of the big organizations in the early days of my consulting business, we had something called a pain chain. And so what you would do is you would identify the main pain that they would verbalize or that they would be talking about. And then you would also then go, okay, and who else is affected by this? And then you'd understand that they had their own pains or their own version of that pain. And then you'd see, okay, well, the operations department is having a pain because they're not able to get their deliveries out. Okay, well, that probably impacts the finance department. That probably impacts the logistics department, which means it probably impacts on the sales department and customer services department too, which also means it impacts on the management. So each of those will have their own pain, but they'll all be related to that one pain. But you then need to identify which is the biggest one and which is the one that you can solve and which is the one that has the highest priority. And this is where I think a lot of, we're going off topic slightly, but I think this is where a lot of sellers kind of fall down, because that requires a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's not a case of just going in and asking customer some questions, getting a contract and leaving. This is more about complex sales. This is more about bigger, complex deals in larger organizations. But it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
But typically it is. I mean, and even in small organizations, though, there will be other departments. You know, you can have a team of 10 in a company, and they'll all have slightly different versions of the same pain that's affecting them. And but put the effort into actually finding that. And if you do put that effort into uncovering that, and I'm coming back to the methodology now, you're then able to challenge the pain. You're able to challenge how important it is. You're able to challenge how committed they are to actually doing something about it. And then you have to make sure that they have the money, the resources, and the commitment to actually follow that through and make sure that it is actually delivered as well. And the salesperson, and this is the key with Sandler, is that they must be willing to walk away, and they must be prepared to have adult conversations where they challenge some of this stuff, where they challenge, you know, the customer, and they don't. I think sometimes salespeople and management are guilty of getting excited about a big named brand, and also getting excited or mistaking enthusiasm for commitment,
or enthusiasm for budget.
That's right.
So I like your reframe of pain versus opportunity. So obviously some people are investing in things for growth, and that's not really a pain, it's an ambition. I guess you could describe that as it's painful that we're not growing. It's painful that the company is stagnant. It's painful that we're in the same place as we always were. But even if it's painful because our systems are broken and there's too much manual work and inefficiency in what we do, that could be articulated as an ambition, as an opportunity. And I do think that sometimes if there's genuine pain, things are broken, and you as a salesperson can articulate it as ambition and opportunity, you build more enthusiasm, better rapport, and vision for the potential benefit that you can deliver.
And that's exactly where Challenger comes in, because you're challenging that existing mindset. Right. You're challenging you're reframing and challenging their worldview.
Right.
And then this is where spin then falls in nicely in that next step, because you're then able to walk them through the different consequences and the outcomes of that.
There you go. But the other thing that you mentioned was making sure that they have budget money for it.
So important. Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of clients are a bit lost. Like, I don't think, at least in my experience, there's a good appreciation, awareness for what is there's very rarely an internal calculation that's been done to say, this is our pain, this is our opportunity, and this is what the business value of solving that is going to be. That I don't think I can think of a single time when the project, the sales conversation started anywhere close to a client or a prospect articulating it in that kind of way. This is what I don't know, what's it going to take? I don't know. Well, we think we have this much to spend. How far can you, like, nobody has ever come forward and said, we're dealing with this. We've got 3 people on it right now. We need to cut that down to 2. Therefore, we're willing to invest and get a 3-year ROI on that single head count. If you can solve it for less, if you need more, but I don't think I've ever. So when we're able to come in and talk about the economics of the situation and take the conversation away from the word budget, ask them how much they want, and build that business case, it always ends up with a certain amount of delight and enjoyment for how we're able to go through that sort of conversation about what should be spent on the situation.
Yeah, and it's a very valid point that you're making there, because the other thing about Sandler is the importance of protecting the seller's time, or your time in this, because very often salespeople will end up, just sort of chasing. They'll chase that unsolicited RFP that comes in. They'll chase the, oh, this looks interesting customers, and the ones who just send us a proposal, or or they just keep asking lots and lots and lots and lots of questions about lots of information and stuff, and salespeople can spend an awful lot of time and an awful lot of effort, and it's hard because they're working hard to try and get the sale. They're working hard to move things along and to help that potential customer. But very often that's misplaced effort because the customer's just not ready. They don't have all of the elements in place in order to be able to actually move the deal forward. And Sandler's a very good way of qualifying the opportunity much earlier, and sort of challenging that situation and the customer's position a lot more politely, I suppose, and then actually respecting their own time, which is obviously very important, and it's especially important, of course, in the complex B2B sales, where you can spend an awful lot of time doing proposals and pricing models and presentations and meetings and stuff, and you can go on for months and months and months, and you're chasing the wrong deals and you've lost other opportunities because of it. So I encourage our listeners to look deeper into Sandler, and especially
or into whichever one of these feels like.
Well, all three of them, but especially if they're involved in complex B2B sales, and just definitely have a look at the Sandler model and see where that could fit within their business, because I think they'll find that it will be very valuable implementation into the team, especially if combined with Challenger and Spin.
There you go.
What are your thoughts, Scott, on that?
My thoughts are we also need to do a month on buying methodologies, because it occurs to me as we talk about this that we're talking about things that run into immediate friction when the complex buying situations, or even when in a smaller organization, the person buying thinks that they're the one that is going to drive the process. Mm-hmm. And obviously you need to kind of allow for that to happen, but you need to sort of, and there are different folks who approach that kind of evaluation and purchasing process in very different ways. RFP, sending a brief, I don't know, I could go on, right? That's a whole other sort of situation. And then there's kind of a, what do we do? And what's the matrix of like buying situations and selling methodologies? All of a sudden my mind just kind of went on a journey there. So
very happy to do that one. There's actually a really good book by the same authors who did Challenger Sale on that, exactly that.
There you go.
Definitely worth checking out as well. I think we've done a very good job this month of covering in a very short period of time 3 very complex and very interesting methodologies at a high enough level to give people an overview, but also deep enough a little bit so that we can get excited about it and feel that there's an opportunity to refresh our own minds on it, or give a little bit of structure and framework to ourselves if we weren't necessarily aware of the things that we were using.
You betcha.
And I think that's the case for many of the listeners as well. However, if the listeners want to find out more and ask us any questions about any of these things, or go back and listen to some older episodes and find out lots of other great things that we've talked about, then go to tandtimbits.com, where you can find all of that information. And please engage with us on LinkedIn, even though we don't engage very much with the audience. We might start doing it a little bit more if you start engaging with us on there. But otherwise, you can just contact us through tandtimbits.com. We welcome all of the feedback, and we look forward to hearing from you and telling you all about the tools that support these methodologies next week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy.